Okay. Um, good morning, one and all. So, I'm Vishnu. I'm going to present a seminar in front of you on the topic conservation of River Kaveri. So, let's first talk about the introduction. The Kaveri, also spelled as Kaveri, that is Kaveri, known as Ponni in Tamil, is the fourth largest river in the South India. Originating in the Western Ghats at Talakaveri in Karnataka's Kodag district, it passes through Tamil Nadu. The river bisects the state into north and south and finally reaches the Bay of Bengal at Poomputtur, also known as Kaveri Poompattinam in Tamil Nadu. The Kaveri Basin is spread over 81,155 square kilometers in the states of Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, and Kerala, and the Union Territory of Puducherry. The Kaveri's major tributaries, Kabini, Moyar, join it before it reaches the Stanley Reservoir at Mettur in the Tamil Nadu's Salem district. The river's total length from source to mouth is 802 kilometers. So this is a geographical aspect of River Kaveri. It starts from Talakaveri, passes through the Kodagu in Karnataka, and the length of it is 805 kilometers. So you can see that it starts from the Talakaveri, that is on the left side, and ends in the Bay of Bengal. The basin area is 81,155 kilometers square. This is the physical map of the flow of or the river course in the River Kaveri. So let's talk about history of Kaveri. In the history of Kaveri, Kannadigas are very emotional about the Kaveri river as she originates in the Kodagu. She originates in the form of spring at Brahmagiri Hill at Talakaveri in Kodag district. No doubt, Kaveri is the lifeblood of both Karnataka and Tamil Nadu, covering a large distance from the Western Ghats. Lakhs of people live on Kaveri River as the river is the main source of drinking water, irrigation, and electricity. So the first we talk about the Kaveri water dispute. The sharing of waters of the Kaveri River has been the source of a serious conflict between two Indian states of Tamil Nadu and Karnataka. The genesis of this conflict rests in two agreements in 1892 and 1924 between the Madras Presidency and Kingdom of Mysore. That 802 kilometers Kaveri River has 44,000 kilometers square basin area in Tamil Nadu and 32,000 kilometers square basin area in Karnataka. The main problem is the inflow from Karnataka is 425 TMC feet, whereas the Tamil Nadu is only 252 TMC feet. So the difference between these, the TMC flow into the each states was the source of the beginning of the water dispute. So it was first the Madras Presidency signed a pact in 1892, and still the water dispute is going on. So the present situation, that is, it's polluted. So you can see that many newspaper cuttings have been shown that from almost 10 to 15 years, this has begun the pollution in Kaveri. The present situation, the situation for Indian rivers is no different down south, as some of the major rivers in southern India face similar problems of pollution, administrative and public apathy, resulting in widespread pollution. Kaveri, the 765-kilometer long river, which flows through the states of Karnataka and Tamil Nadu, has been victim of disposal of untreated effluents, resulting in the river water becoming polluted at various sections of the river. Even the color of the Kaveri river has changed in some places due to the disposal of toxic effluents. You can see that in a study they said by the Anna University, they have said the Kaveri is more polluted than Ganga. That is, Kaveri carries 600% more than chemical toxins than Ganga. The amount of total dissolved solids present in Kaveri is almost 753 milligram. In the photo, we can see that the Kaveri has the TDS of 753 and the Ganges just has only 130. So we can imagine that how much is the river polluted as compared to the Ganga. The first problem faced by the Kaveri is a decline in forest cover in Kodagu Hills. Next is the disposing of industrial effluents in Mysore. Then the Bangalore, one of the major cities in Kaveri banks, is highly responsible for the city's condition of the river. City discharges a daily amount of 200 to 300 mld of sewage into the river. So the main problem, the first source of this pollution is the dye discharge by the textile industries. Effluent released by Tirupur dyeing units in Noel River, which drains into the Kaveri in Karur, has been posing a threat to farmers and residents. The Noel, which originates in the Velengari hills of Coimbatore district, flows through Tirupur, Erode, and Karur before finally draining into the Kaveri in Karur. The river is about 120 km long and enters Karur district at Saliangatti Valley and joins the Kaveri near Noel village. Around 20,000 acres are irrigated by Noel River, which flows for about 50 km in Karur district. The industrial effluents, water let out by the factories in Salem, chemical factories in Mettur, dyeing industries in Erode, Tirupur, Bhavani, and Kumarapalayam, dumping of garbage on the banks and letting untreated sewage directly into the river have made Kaveri the lifeline of lakhs of farmers in the Delta region, a hotbed of pollution. So you can see the dyes are released by the textile industry in Tirupur just directly into the river Kaveri without any effluent treatment. Next is the animal waste disposal in Kaveri. Animal waste is being disposed in the river near Kushalnagar and sewage water from Mysuru, which joins in between Changahala village. Besides, factories located on the outskirts of the Mysore city are illegally letting the effluents into the river. The next is the ritual performance by the people. Water gets even more polluted due to the ritual performed by for one of the ancestors, and and when clothes, puja items, and materials are used for the rituals are dumped into the river, adding to the river's booze in pollution caused by religious superstition, as some call it garlands, flowers, and other items used during worship thrown into the river. In the second picture, you can see that the Chief Minister of Karnataka is offering praise to River Kaveri as part of conservation of program by throwing some kind of flowers and ritual items into the water body. So he is trying to avoid pollution by praying and polluting it again. Next is the water hyacinth. The water hyacinth poses a threat to the aquatic species in the river as it absorbs large quantities of water, resulting in depletion of oxygen. These plants also attract mosquitoes and snakes. As sewage water gets mixed, the plants can be seen at various places in river. The water gets polluted during its journey from Kodagu, its origin, to Mandya, and is not fit to be used for even domestic course. Next is the sand mining. The sand mining, you can see the difference between the banks of Kaveri in Tamil Nadu results in essential components. Like the first picture was took in 2001, and the next picture is took in 2018. So we can observe the difference between those two images. The banks have entirely changed. In the initial period in 2001, there were no houses, vegetations were present, but now it has everything has changed because of the mining. All this vegetation has been lost. Next is a froth formation. The State Industry Promotion Corporation of Tamil Nadu Limited in Mettur is home to a number of chemical factories that manufacture caustic soda, bleaching powder, and industrial salts. Beneath the river sides, a 1240 megawatt water guzzling coal-fired thermal power plant operated by Tamil Nadu Generation and Distribution Corporation Limited. Paper mill owned by Tamil Nadu government near Karur is also a major cause for water pollution in area, and activists allege the factories on the banks of the river consume more water than they are allowed to pump. So this is a video footage of the froth formation here. So this is a froth formation in the river. You can see that froth is formed due to the effluent discharge. So in the news, they are saying that the water originating from the Nandi Durgam goes through Tenpaniyuru, Hosur, Krishnanagari, and Kadalur to join with the Bay of Bengal. So for the past 50 years, in the path of river, 900 acres east of Bangalore in Varatur Lake, waste from industries are being dumped. So due to this, the foam that is being formed has caused fires in the lake in the past few months. The cause of the fire has been speculated to be harmful chemicals being released into the water body. A notice has been sent by Green Tribunal Southern Zone to stop the dumping of harmful chemicals into Penai Lake. So this is the same lake that comes through Bangalore to Tamil Nadu. Almost 13 TMC of unsafe dangerous water is sent from the state of Karnataka to Tamil Nadu. So this news had caused great distress among the farmers of Tamil Nadu, and they have been insisting that water that is being sent to them has to be filtered and purified. So let's link into the chemistry of the Kaveri. The water quality parameters, that is the BOD, DO, that is the biological oxygen demand, dissolved oxygen, pH, temperature, electric conductivity, turbidity, total dissolved solids, hardness of water, amount of chemicals present. One second. So this is the map of Kaveri Basin here. So we have considered some study points like D1, D2, or come from the river course like that. So these are the sampling sites which we have considered as the study points. So according to the study points, the DU and BOD are determined to check the organic and inorganic pollution in water. So let's talk about what is BOD and dissolved oxygen and what's the importance of dissolved oxygen in BOD in the water or the river. Dissolved oxygen is the amount of oxygen that is present in water. Water bodies receive oxygen from the atmosphere and from aquatic plants. Running water, such as that of swift moving stream, dissolves more oxygen than the still water of a pond or lake. So on those on the study sites, we can see that average water temperature in summer was highest, that is 29.6 degrees Celsius during April, and in the August, that is during the monsoon season, it was 26 degrees Celsius. Next is the BOD. Biological oxygen demand is the amount of dissolved oxygen needed by aerobic biological organisms to break down organic materials present in a given water sample at certain temperature over a specific time. So when we consider the pH, it was minimum of 6.2 at R2, that is the downstream, and to a maximum of 8.62 in the D1 upstream. That is, as the river flows, the pH decreases. That is it's becoming acidic, which is very, very harmful for the human body. Next is the electrical conductivity. The conductivity of water is a measure of the capability of water to pass electrical flow. This ability is directly dependent on the concentration of conductive ions present in the water. Next is the turbidity. Turbidity is the amount of cloudiness in the water. This can vary from river full of mud and silt, where it would be impossible to see through the water, to spring water, which appears to be completely clear. So the total dissolved is a measure of solids, materials dissolved in the river water. In the present study, the TDS ranges from 25 milligram to 220 milligram per liter, according to the stations and according to the weather out there. So these are the study reports. So let's look about what are the chemicals present in the Kaveri. The first present was the chlorine. The desirable limit of chlorine in by ISI for drinking purpose is 250 milligram per liter. That is the level that is set by WHO. So chlorine, once in water, interacts with organic compounds to create trihalomethanes, which when ingested encourages the growth of free radicals that can destroy or damage vital cells in the body. So it's harmful for the body. So these are the study or the amount of chlorine present in the all those study sites. So next is the phosphate. So this is the study sites recorded recordings. So the phosphate is readily taken by the phytoplankton. It is necessary for plant and animal growth. Higher value of phosphate in reservoir water is due to the agriculture waste and use of fertilizers. Too much phosphorus can cause increased growth of algae and large aquatic plants, which can result in decreased levels of dissolved oxygen, a process called eutrophication. High levels of phosphorus can also lead to algae blooms that produce algal toxins, which can be harmful to human and animal health. Next is the nitrate. Nitrate is added by common sources such as fertilizers, animal waste, septic tanks, municipal sewage treatment systems, etc. During monsoon, soil loss contributes to the increase of nitrogen concentration in the river water. High levels of nitrate in well water often results from improper well construction, well location, and overuse of chemical fertilizers or improper disposal of human and animal waste. So these are the bar graphs of potassium or other metals like potassium, sodium, calcium, magnesium, etc. in various study sites. And it's considered on the basis of 3 seasons, that is pre-monsoon, monsoon, and post-monsoon. So these are the total dissolved solids present across the river basin in the Kaveri. So you can see that most of them is satisfactory and unsatisfactory. So which is not healthy for the river. Water quality in Tamil Nadu is worse here. So heavy metal contamination. Environment pollution of heavy metals is increasingly becoming a problem and has become a great concern due to the adverse effects and it is causing around the world. These inorganic pollutants are being discarded in our waters, soils, and into the atmosphere due to the rapidly growing agriculture and metal industries, improper waste disposal fertilizers, and pesticides. As according to the IIT study research, they have come to the conclusions that significant contamination by metals such as arsenic, zinc, chromium, lead, and nickel are present. And pharmaceutical contaminants included anti-inflammatory drugs like ibuprofen and diclofenac, and anti-hypersensitive such as atenolol and isoprenaline, enzyme inhibitors like perindopril, stimulants like caffeine, antidepressants such as carbamazepine, and antibiotics such as ciprofloxacin are present in the river Kaveri. The team's environment risk assessment has shown that pharmaceutical contaminants pose medium to high risk to the selective aquatic life forms of riverine system. These drugs compounds, when released even in minuscule amounts into the water bodies, can harm human beings and the ecosystem in the long run. So the instrument used here were water samples were collected in the polyethylene bottles from 8 stations along waterway. The samples were preserved according to standard methods, pH, salinity, and electrical conductivity were measured with YSI 33 model portable conductivity meter. Samples were filtered through 0.45 millimeter millipore filter paper. They were concentrated 5 times by evaporation method for heavy metal analysis. All samples were preserved at 4 degrees Celsius. Heavy metals like chromium, cobalt, copper, manganese, nickel, zinc, and lead were detected by atomic absorption spectrometer. Sodium and potassium has been analyzed by flame photometer, sulfate by gravimetric, HCO3 and C chlorine by volumetric methods. To check the accuracy and precision of the measurement, Merck standard solution with known concentration were analyzed. So according to the IIT studies, the results revealed that zinc content was the highest compared to other metals according to the study sites. The higher concentration might be due to the artificial pathways like steel productions, coal-fired power stations, burning of waste materials, and even fertilizers also. Next is the iron. The low level of iron can harm your health. It contains bacteria. In addition to this, high iron in water content leads to an overload which can cause diabetes, hemochromatosis, stomach problems, and nausea. It can also damage the liver and pancreas. Next is the copper. Eating or drinking too much copper can cause vomiting, diarrhea, stomach cramps, nausea, liver damage, and kidney diseases. So all those elements like chromium, lead, nickel, arsenic, cadmium, everything is harmful for the health, and these are all present in the Kaveri. So we can imagine how much polluted is this river. So these are the bar graphs or the reports of the IIT's study. The concentration of heavy metals in water during the monsoon season, it's all-time high. You can see that. So this is the tabular form. When we look into this, is that the upper one is the post-monsoon season, and the below one is the monsoon season's tabular form. And we can see that the post-monsoon season has more contaminants as compared to the monsoon season, because during the monsoon season the water comes flushing out of the water river body, and effluents get mixed up with the water, and their pollutant as all-time high. So the extinctions of fishes. 58 species of freshwater fish belonging to 18 families and 44 genera were present in Kaveri. Close to 25% of the fish species are that occur within the study area are endemic to the Western Ghats region, of which 8 are endemic to the Kaveri river system. The Mahasir population of this river. The Mahasir is the most upper one, that is the B. The picture where the one man is holding a fish, that is a Mahasir fish. So the Mahasir population of this river is comprised of several distinct morphotypes, of which the bluefin, orange fin, or the humpbacked, and the blackfin are the most frequently encountered. While the humpbacked Mahasir is also known for as Tor Rama Devi, there still remains ambiguity and confusion on the identity of the various morphotypes of Mahasir present in the Kaveri, including the fact whether they constitute one or more distinct species. Majority of the fish species that is present here are assessed as least concern on the IUCN Red List of Threatened Species, according to IUCN 2020. However, 8 species found in the study area are threatened, including 2 that has been assessed as critically endangered, 4 as endangered, and 2 as vulnerable. 15 of these species are endemic to Western Ghats region. Of these 15 species, 8 have a restricted range and occur only in the Kaveri River. As a result, many direct threats to fishes, such as indiscriminate and often destructive fishing practices and sand mining, have effectively been kept under control almost most river stretches. The biggest threat to the freshwater fishes in the area is anthropogenic impacts to the riparian habitat that supports this large aquatic diversity. Development projects proposed in and around the study site threaten to change the dynamics of the river and its riparian vegetation, not only affecting breeding and feeding habitats of many fish species, but also force key species in the sanctuary such as grizzled giant squirrel, Ratufa macroura, Indian marsh crocodile, and smooth-coated otter to drastically change their habitat and use patterns. So, conservation of River Kaveri. Calling Kaveri was a campaign which was started by Sadhguru. Like the now to the till date, that's till yesterday, they have been planting these much trees in the banks of Kaveri. It was started by Sadhguru uh, in 2016. So it was a campaign which was conducted by Sadhguru, and he started planting numerous number of trees in the banks of River Kaveri, so that water holds so that the trees holds the water in the banks, and most of the time the Kaveri's river water always gets dried up in the summer season without reaching the Bay of Bengal. Always it happens, but if the trees are planted in the river banks, the roots will try to hold the water in the banks, and the Kaveri won't get dried up, and the farmers can use this and utilize it for the irrigation purposes. So treatment of effluents. As part of a biotechnology students, we can assume that treatment of effluents can be done by bioaugmentation, which is a biological COD degradation. So let's look into video footage of bioaugmentation. So this is the bio-augmentation process. Next, the wastewater management here. It's also a biological system. There's a sludge reduction in the wastewater. So the here we can see that enzyme capsules are added into the wastewater, which start their enzymatic reaction, and the sludge concentration is decreased by the dissolution of these enzyme particles. So this is a brown is the sludge layer, and upper layer is the water layer. So in a wastewater treatment, if we put these enzymes, the sludge layer will get decreased, and we can purify it. So that's a small animation here. So the ammonia removal can be done here using the BioRemove AM, which reduces effluent ammonia by 97.5%. Bioaugmentation with BioRemove delivers highly effective nitrification in all wastewater types. It restores nitrification quickly after process upsets. And wait, this has been slideshow. So microbes or FOG removal. FOG is fats, oils, and greases. So the fats, oils, and greases degrade comparatively slowly and have high biochemical oxygen demand. They are also insoluble in water. So when they build up in wastewater treatment plants, they cause a wide range of problems in municipal plants, and they cause fouling of lift stations and transfer pumps and transfer lines. Industrial wastewater treatment can be done in anaerobic wastewater treatment, aerobic wastewater treatment, clarification, evaporation, filtration, and one more is the desalination. So let's link to the video footage of how to desaline a water. So these are the types of desalination techniques. And in all those four, reverse osmosis is taken as an efficient purpose. So here the reverse osmosis is taken because the energy consumption is less, as we can see in the bar graph. So the microbial fuel cell is used here. The bacteria used is here the geobacter named bacteria. So according to the anion and cation, they get differentiated. All those all those ions present in the water gets separated from this. So we will think that how is the geobacter living in the bioreactor? So the acetate is provided as a nutrition medium for the bacteria that is called the geobacter. So this is the video footage of how to desaline water. When all those methods can be used, like anaerobic wastewater treatment, aerobic wastewater, clarification, evaporation, filtration. But from all those is the highly efficient and high productivity and less energy consumption, and that's reverse osmosis. That's why we took the reverse osmosis. So next is the reclamation of water. Reclamation water is defined as the effluent derived in any part from the sewage that has been adequately and reliably treated to a higher quality so that it is suitable for beneficial uses. So they are also insoluble in water and we can be used here. So next is, we all know that what is bioremediation. So bioremediation is a branch of biotechnology that employs the use of living bacteria in the removal of contaminants, pollutants, and toxins from soil, water, and other environments. Bioremediation may be used to clean up the contaminated groundwater or environment problems such as oil spills. So this is the mechanism of how the bioremediation works. The first is the passive and active heavy metal uptake by biological materials. That is the A part. And the B part is mechanisms of heavy metal biosorption by bacterial cells. So that's the cycle or the process or mechanism how the bioremediation works here. So next is the biosorption. Biosorption is an emerging method that came into practice about 2 decades ago. This method depends on sequestration of toxic heavy metals by moieties of biosorbent cell surface, such as those found in fungi or yeast, bacteria, and algae. So this can be used for extracting heavy metals. Like biosorption is a method actually used by scientists in a case study of finding heavy metals present in river water or soil sample, etc. So biosorptions are used there. Next is the bioaccumulation. In the bioaccumulation is the gradual accumulation of substance such as pesticides or other chemicals in an organism. That's the bioaccumulation process. Next is the phytoremediation. The plants have been used for phytoremediation of toxic metals and metalloids, but this process has been slow and largely rendered ineffective due to the phytotoxicity of heavy metals to the plants. Phytoremediation is also a process for treating of effluents or removing the pollutants from the pollution. So this is a method of phytoremediation here. So the first process, accumulation, then volatilization, modification, translocation by the roots, detoxification by the stems, like they detoxify due to the presence of they produce secondary metabolites by the plants, and they detoxify it. So the next is an ideal or a best method for these kind of things, that is manipulating metal or metalloid transporter genes and uptake system. So, for instance, here the improved metal tolerance and accumulation has been achieved in different plant species by manipulating metal transporters. Like, for instance, Arabidopsis thaliana overexpressing yeast YCF1, that is yeast cadmium factor 1, resulted in an enhanced tolerance of lead 2 and cadmium 2 and accumulated higher amounts of these metals in plants. Like, if we design a plant like transporter genes and uptake system with metal tolerance and accumulation, here the Arabidopsis thaliana plant can withstand and tolerate the lead and cadmium concentration. Furthermore, the tDNA mutants, that is the tumor-causing DNA mutants of Arabidopsis CNG-C1 gene, which encodes a homologous protein and is also conferred to lead tolerance. Continued. The YCF1 is also in cadmium transport into vacuoles by conjugation with glutathione. Next is the calcium. Tobacco plants expressing calcium exchanger 2 gene accumulated more calcium and were more tolerant to elevated manganese levels. Next is the arsenic. Strategies of developing transgenic plants of arsenic phytoremediation include enhancing plant uptake for phytoextraction, decreasing plant uptake, improving the plant's tolerance to arsenic contamination, and increased methylation for enhanced food safety. And next is the rhizoremediation. So this is a combination of two approaches, that is phytoremediation and bioaugmentation for cleaning contaminated substrates. So this is that rhizoremediation process. When here it refers to the exploitation of microbes present in the rhizosphere of plants and utilized for phytoremediation purposes. So this is the rhizoremediation process, developing plants for phytoremediation. This is the conclusion. According to Indian proverb, only when the last tree has died, the last river poisoned, and the last fish caught will be realized we cannot eat money. And as Chandramohan sums it up, Even graveyards have security, but none of our rivers does. So researchers suggest that it is necessary for stringently enforce the existing norms of discharge of treated effluents by industries and townships along the river source to reduce the chemicals in Kaveri. Thank you. This is the end of seminar.